At some point in your life, likely more than once, you will be hurting, and no one will come, not because they don't love you. Sometimes people are simply far away or asleep or carrying their own storm too heavy to notice yours. Sometimes the person you most needed in that moment was never available to begin with, and in that silence, phone unanswered, room empty, the ache still sitting exactly where it was, a question tends to surface that most of us are never taught how to answer. If no one is coming, what do I do with this pain? Most of us were never given a real answer to that question. We were taught to seek comfort outward, call someone, tell someone, wait for someone to arrive, and make it better. And there's nothing wrong with needing others. Connection is one of the deepest, most nourishing parts of being alive. But somewhere along the way, many of us quietly absorbed a belief that healing can only happen through another person. That without someone else's comfort, our pain simply has nowhere to go. The old Buddhist teachings say otherwise. They point to something almost forgotten in how we talk about healing today. The idea that you already carry within you the capacity to tend your own wounds, not instead of needing others, but so that you are never left completely empty-handed on the nights no one else comes. Today I want to show you how to reach that place in yourself, the one that doesn't require rescue in order to begin healing. Stay with me. By the end of this, you'll understand something that changes how every future hard night feels. You were never as alone with your pain as it sometimes convinced you that you were. There is an old story told about a young monk sent out each week to gather herbs for the monastery's small infirmary. One afternoon, on a narrow path far from the temple, he slipped on wet stone and fell hard, twisting his ankle so badly he could not stand. The path was rarely traveled. No one knew exactly where he had gone. Night was already beginning to settle between the trees. He called out again and again until his voice gave out. No one answered. He lay there as the light faded, certain that help was his only hope, and equally certain that help was not coming. Not that night, perhaps not for a long while. As true darkness fell, he noticed a faint light through the trees, a single lamp burning in the window of a small hut he had never noticed before, though he had walked this path for years. He dragged himself toward it, and an old hermit, a healer, who had lived alone in the forest for decades, opened the door and helped him inside. The hermit examined the ankle, cleaned the wound, and wrapped it carefully. But then, instead of simply finishing the treatment himself, she placed the remaining supplies in the young monk's own hands. "You do the rest," she said. "But you know how to do this?" the monk protested. "I don't. I might do it wrong." The old healer shook her head gently. "I know how to guide you, but the healing itself was never something I could do to you. It was only ever something your own body was capable of doing for itself, with a little help finding its way. I can hold the lamp. I cannot walk the path for you." Over the following days, as his ankles slowly mended, the old healer taught him things he had never learned in the monastery. Not just how to tend a physical wound, but a deeper teaching underneath it, one she said had taken her decades alone in the forest to understand herself. Most people, she told him, believe healing arrives from outside them, a rescuer, a cure, someone who finally shows up and fixes what hurts. And sometimes, yes, others help enormously. I helped you find your way to this door tonight, and I'm glad I was here. But even then, notice, I did not heal your ankle. Your own body did that. I only made sure you weren't alone while it happened. When the monk was finally strong enough to walk again, the hermit walked with him part way back toward the monastery, then stopped at the edge of the forest. "You will fall again," she said, not unkindly. "Not on this path, perhaps, but somewhere. And there may not always be a lamp in the window when you do. When that happens, remember tonight. Remember that the healing was always something living inside you, waiting only to be given a little room to do its work." This story is told not because of the ankle, but because of what it reveals about every kind of wound, the ones you can see and the ones you can't. Today, I want to walk you through 3 teachings drawn from this same wisdom. Old ways of learning to be your own lamp, so that even on the nights no one else arrives, you are never entirely without light. Teaching 1. Distinguish between needing comfort and needing rescue. The first teaching begins with an honest distinction most of us have never been taught to make. The difference between wanting comfort, which is natural and human, and believing you require rescue, which quietly keeps you waiting, powerless, for someone else to arrive before your healing is allowed to begin. When we're hurting, these 2 things often feel identical, but they aren't. Wanting comfort says this would help and I hope for it. Believing you need rescue says nothing can move forward until this arrives. The first leaves your healing in your own hands, open to help along the way. The second hands your healing entirely to someone else's schedule, someone else's availability, someone else's willingness to show up, none of which you can control. The old teachings point out something important here. Much of our suffering comes not from the wound itself, but from placing the responsibility for healing it outside of ourselves in hands that may never actually reach us in time. Here is the first practice. The next time you're hurting and reaching for your phone, hoping someone answers, pause for a moment and ask yourself honestly, am I hoping for comfort, or am I convinced I cannot begin healing without it? If it's comfort you want, reach out. There's nothing wrong with that, and connection remains one of life's deepest medicines. But if you notice the second belief underneath it, the quiet certainty that nothing can move until someone else responds, gently challenge it. Say to yourself, I would like someone to be here. And also, I am not as powerless as this moment is convincing me I am. This isn't about refusing help when it's offered. It's about no longer handing over the entire key to your own healing to people who may not always be reachable, a lesson the young monk only learned once he had no other choice but to pick up the wrapping himself. Teaching 2. Become your own gentle witness. The second teaching goes even deeper than the first, into something the old hermit understood long before she ever met the injured monk. Much of what we call healing is not actually the mending of the physical wound. It is the experience of not being alone while the wound mends. This is why isolation so often makes pain feel unbearable, even when nothing about the physical situation has worsened. It's not always the wound itself that overwhelms us. It's the feeling of facing it with no witness at all. No one to notice, no one to say, I see this is hard for you. Here is the profound shift the old teachings offer. You are capable of being that witness for yourself. This might sound strange at first, even a little sad. The idea of comforting yourself when what you actually wanted was someone else to do it. But it is not a lesser substitute. It is closer to what the hermit meant when she said she could hold the lamp but could not walk the path. Even the most loving person in your life was never actually able to feel the pain for you. They could only ever accompany you while you felt it. And that accompaniment, or that simple, steady act of not turning away, is something you are also capable of offering yourself in the moments no one else is present to offer it. Here is the practice. When you're hurting and alone, instead of only waiting for someone else to notice, place a hand gently over your heart or your stomach, wherever the feeling sits most heavily in your body, and speak to yourself the way a steady friend would. Quietly, without rushing to fix anything, simply acknowledging what's true. I see that this hurts. I'm not going to look away from it. I'm right here with you, even if no one else is right now. Say it slowly. Let it feel awkward if it needs to the first few times. What you are practicing is not pretending to be your own best friend out of desperation. You are rebuilding a relationship with yourself that may have quietly gone missing for years, buried under the assumption that only other people were allowed to offer this kind of presence. The old healer never claimed the young monk didn't need her that night. He did. He needed her lamp, her guidance, her steady hands, showing him where to begin. But what she gave him in the days that followed was not a permanent dependence on her presence. It was a demonstration of something he had always been capable of, once someone finally showed him where to look for it. Inside his own two hands. Teaching 3. Be a lamp unto yourself. The third and final teaching comes from one of the oldest and most quietly powerful moments in the entire Buddhist tradition. Words said to have been offered near the very end of the Buddha's own life, when his closest students, frightened at the thought of losing their teacher, asked him who they should turn to once he was gone. His answer did not point them toward a future leader, or a replacement teacher, or an institution that would carry his authority forward. Instead, he pointed them back towards something already living inside each of them, urging them to become their own steady light, their own place of refuge, rather than depending entirely on something or someone outside themselves to carry them through what came next. That teaching has traveled for over 2,000 years for a reason. It doesn't ask you to stop needing teachers, friends, or loved ones. The Buddha himself spent his entire life surrounded by community and never once suggested isolation was the goal. What it asks is something more specific and more freeing, that you learn to carry a small, steady light of your own, so that even in seasons when no other light is nearby, you are not left standing in complete darkness, waiting. Here is the final practice, and it is less a single action than a way of beginning to see yourself. Think of one moment in your life, however small, where you got yourself through something difficult without anyone else's help. Perhaps no one even knew it happened. A hard night you sat with alone and made it to morning. A fear you faced without anyone holding your hand. A wound, physical or otherwise, that mended slowly, quietly, while you kept going anyway. That moment is proof, not of loneliness, but of a light that was already yours, that you carried the entire time, whether you noticed it or not. Say this to yourself as a closing practice. I have already been my own lamp before more than once. I'm allowed to trust that light again, especially on the nights when no other light is near. This does not mean you will never need anyone again. You will. Needing others is not a flaw to be healed out of you. It's one of the most human, most beautiful parts of being alive. But you no longer have to believe that your healing is entirely dependent on their arrival. You carry a lamp of your own now. It may be small, it may flicker on hard nights, but it is enough to see the next few steps in front of you, and often that's all healing has ever actually required. So here is what I want you to carry with you. Teaching 1. Notice the difference between wanting comfort and believing you need rescue. Wanting comfort leaves your healing in your own hands. Needing rescue hands it entirely to someone else's timing. Teaching 2. Become your own gentle witness. You cannot feel the pain for someone else, and no one else can fully feel it for you. But you can offer yourself the same steady presence you'd offer anyone you loved who was hurting. Teaching 3. Be a lamp unto yourself, not instead of needing others, but so that even on the nights no other light arrives, you are never left standing in complete darkness, waiting for a rescue that may not come in time. You will still at times need people to hold the lamp for you, to help you find your way to the door, the way the old hermit helped the young monk on the night he could not walk another step alone. Needing that was never a weakness, it was simply the truth of being human, and it will remain true for the rest of your life. But underneath that need, quietly, patiently, there has always been another truth as well, one you may not have been shown until now. You are also already someone capable of tending your own wounds, of sitting with your own pain without turning away from it, of carrying a small, steady light through the parts of your life no one else can walk beside you through. You were never as alone with your healing as the silence sometimes convinced you that you were. If this reached you at the right moment, sit with it for a few minutes before the next thing pulls you away. And if you'd like more of these, old wisdom for the quiet strength so many of us forget we already carry, Stay a little longer. There's more here waiting for you.